Welcome to Impact Investing, brought to you by supportersfund.com. From the student visa capital of the world, Toronto, Canada, I'm your host, Jeffery J.P. Potvin, and let's please welcome from the sauna capital of the world, clean as water, and with the most heavy metal bands, Helsinki, Finland, we have Kustaa and Peter, who are building the very first underground rail connecting Helsinki and Tallinn in Estonia. Welcome, Kustaa and Peter. It's a real pleasure having you back on the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Great to be back.
Well, I love it. Well, to kick things off, and I know this is going to be a little bit of a different segment because we're doing a follow-up to a previous interview that we did. So we're doing a follow-up to this massive project, this $15 billion project that you guys are working on. But because we want to jump back into how this all started and where this all came from, maybe we'll jump back into a little bit of Kustaa. Maybe you can share a little bit, just super high level, again, a bit about yourself and background, and then Peter, and then we'll jump into how this project's coming along.
All right. So my name is Kustaa Valtonen, entrepreneur, business angel with a tech background from companies like HP, Microsoft a long time ago. Investing my time and money into early stage companies. And with Peter, we run a joint investment company that has about, I think, 60 startups in the portfolio at the moment. And then, of course, we're running this Helsinki-Tallinn undersea railway tunnel project. That's one of the topics on the agenda today. Over to you, Peter.
I love it. And Peter, how about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm entrepreneur here in the finest Bay Area and Finland more specifically. And basically been focusing on increasing the talent density here in our part of the world. So in many areas, we're already kind of like leading the way. So I liked your point about Toronto being the kind of like student visa capital of the world. So we're going to take you on for that. So we're actually attracting a lot of talent, a lot of students to Finland and to Estonia and to Sweden right now. So the whole finest Bay Area. And that actually is also one of the reasons why we're doing the tunnel project. So that's one way of creating gravity. When you invest 15 billion into infrastructure, and in this case into a tunnel, it creates a lot of these kind of like ripple effects, and that is kind of like one of the main reasons. But then if you look at our part of the world, and I always talk about the finest Bay Area, we have the highest number of startups per capita, we have the highest number of unicorns per capita, and maybe most importantly, we have the highest amount of venture capital invested into local startups per capita. So if you look at like OECD numbers, Estonia was number 1, Finland number 2, Lithuania number 3, Sweden number 4, and the US number 5 when you look at venture capital per capita. We always have to add the per capita because we're tiny little countries up here in North. We can't compete in absolute numbers, but we can do a pretty good job, when you look at like the per capita numbers. The tunnel project is kind of like, I don't know if you can call it the tip of the iceberg in this case, because it is kind of like the iceberg or like below water. But it's kind of like upside down, like tip of the iceberg, because the tunnel is just like a tiny little detail in this bigger scheme of things. And that is all about increasing the talent density and extending the lead that we currently have over the rest of the world when it comes to the startup ecosystem. And of course, to power that, the fuel is really people, namely young people, and that is a big focus of ours. And we're going to take on Toronto and the rest of the world when you look at kind of like number of student visas. And maybe we don't even have to put the per capita thing there. We'll beat you in absolute numbers as well. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I know that right now we're sitting at 1 million students, I believe, a year that have been, it's increased some stagnant amount. So I think that if more countries start to look at this.
But they're not all in Toronto. That's like Canada.
No, correct. They're spread across Canada, right? So I believe that's the full immigration number. And right now there's 500,000 students coming in a year. So, and what they say is that within 3 years, all of those people are moving to Toronto. So I think there's some incredible
Maybe.
shift in migration across Canada.
Yeah, I think that you have a total immigration
But that-
actually at 500,000. So they're not all students. But anyway, we will have, not maybe 500,000 students a year, but we'll get to a high number anyway.
No, that's great. I think they're probably trying to rope ours in because, again, in the last 2 years, because of the high numbers of immigration coming in, students and everyone, that it's putting a buckle on the system. So, regardless, there's lots happening here, which is great. But I love that there's even more happening where you guys are at. So maybe we'll jump right into kind of diving into the project. And maybe, Costa, you can give kind of a quick overview of today versus a year ago on where the project sits, but maybe a little quick background on the project, where it came about, why you guys decided this. I know we've talked in the past that you guys had found documentation that there was interest from back in 1861. And you guys know that this was obviously something that was really interested to all of the people in Helsinki and the commuting and trying to make this more relevant, especially if you look at around the world. They're doing this in a lot of countries where they're trying to figure out how to make and bridge between two separate countries and move people in and out from a commerce perspective. So this all came about. You guys are the ones driving it. So maybe a quick background on that, and then we can dive into some questions.
Yeah, so glad you reminded me of the history of the project. So it's not something that we invented. It's something we decided to do. And there's a big difference there. The idea has been around for a long time. Helsinki and Tallinn are not far away. The distance is about 75 kilometers. So it's a pretty short distance. I think it's probably one of the shortest in the world for two capital cities to be apart. And then another argument in favor of kind of building a tunnel is that the ground is very solid granite. So very good geology on the Baltic Sea to do tunnels, and that's at least what our geologists are saying, that it's not complicated to do it. So we just take some boring machines and bore it, and that's it. It's of course an engineering challenge, but we're working with the best of the bunch and making that happen. 103 kilometers long tunnel with 4 stations connecting Helsinki Airport with the Tallinn Airport, and 1 station on the Finnish mainland, and then 1 artificial island that will be built because of technical reasons. In the first place, we need emergency exits, ventilation, and smoke exhaustion type of things. But also when you bore a very, very long tunnel, there's a lot of rock that comes from the boring. So we need to put it somewhere, and it's not environmentally friendly to actually transport that rock long distances. So we build basically an island, and when you build an island, then you need to think about kind of what you do with the island. So we have come up with this model that we will do like a triple E campus themed island. So education, entrepreneurship, and entertainment, and this is something that it's actually kind of reflecting what you guys just talked about the students quite nicely, because one of the reasons, or basically the primary reason why we are doing the tunnel is that we want to create gravity. We want to create a reason for people to come to the finest Bay Area. Finland, Estonia, Sweden, our part of the world, our region. And we believe that bringing a lot of students, educational institutions, universities, schools together, it generates a good sounding board and good fertile ground to create new companies and new type of innovation. And that's basically what we're doing. It kind of is a continuum of what Peter was just saying about these numbers that we are leading startup ecosystem and area that attracts a lot of capital already. So our way of kind of making sure that we will stay that way, and we provide good feeding ground for the future as well.
I love it. Now, with this setup that you're currently working through, Are there other ways to get between the two cities and two capitals as well? Like, are there ferries that go across already? Are there routes that drive around? And basically, you've got metrics to say that, yeah, it's a 3-hour drive. It's really slow with border crossing, etc. The ferry takes this long. It's not really valuable. People are flying, so that's creating a lot of other chaotic setups. So, are there other things that kind of help bring the value back to why this tunnel would be such a great innovative way to move traffic between the two capitals?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, people are using the ferries. There's a lot of ferries going between the cities, and there's well over 10 million. I think it's 11 million passengers going across the bay every year. And Helsinki, believe it or not, is the busiest passenger port in the world. So let me repeat, busiest passenger port in the world. We surpassed Dover in the UK in 2017, and we have been kind of going our own path since then. Biggest volume is between the Helsinki and Stockholm, big one as well. And we have a lot of cruise liners coming over every year. So there is a big need or big demand for this type of infrastructure to be built. And now I mentioned only the passenger traffic, but there's also the cargo. So there's something called the Rail Baltic that is being built today already through the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, to Poland, and then onwards to Germany, Central Europe. And our plan is to connect the tunnel to Rail Baltic, and it will be creating a new trade route basically for the logistics.
That's amazing. This is very similar to what's going on in Asia, where they also have a rail system that connects a lot of the countries together for the same, to distribute products and mostly obviously products, but same kind of concept. So I love the fact that you guys are figuring out a way to tie into that rail system so that you can show that commerce can be moving quite readily across all of these countries. Peter, maybe you can describe a bit more about the depth that this is going to be built, the timing, and how. I guess the biggest question before we get going, I want to know is, have you guys started? Have you guys started digging yet? So this is pretty exciting. But yeah, maybe you could share a bit more about the metrics around that.
Yeah, but I think that maybe also what Kustaa was saying there. I mean, we have the ferries today, and that traffic has been growing since the early 90s. So basically, you can take like a ruler and just like draw a straight line. And it's been like a steady growth, with the exception, of course, of the pandemic when like everything kind of like stopped. But that's kind of like an important kind of like starting point. So the demand is there. And we also know we have benchmarked some other projects like, the Öresund bridge between Malmö and Copenhagen. And that is, or that connection there, has been for quite a few years now. And they built a bridge. And actually, when that bridge was completed, we had tens of thousands of people from Denmark that moved to the Swedish side because of slightly lower cost of living there, and then everybody on the Swedish side got a job in Copenhagen. So that's pretty much like what happened. And when you look at the Helsinki-Tallinn situation, we have a much higher difference in kind of like standard of living between Helsinki and Tallinn, much higher difference than between Sweden and Denmark. And that said, we know that we have 50,000 Estonians living in Finland, 20,000 are commuting. So just that traffic that will switch over to the tunnel and actually will grow the traffic significantly, you can already use that to kind of justify the business case. And it's important to also, of course, always mention that when people ask, like, okay, why are you building this? We are building it because it's going to be a good and a big business. But yeah, if we look at construction and like all of that, it's actually going to take about 5 years to complete the whole thing. So right now we've been stuck with a bunch of permits and various let's say bureaucracy related issues for the last few years, but now things are moving forward with a good clip again. So construction will involve 16 tunnel boring machines boring in 8 directions, 2 tunnels. So that is also why the physical construction takes like around 2 years or something like that, then we're like done with the physical boring of the tunnel. And then we need to, of course, complete the infrastructure with the stations and the rails and whatnot. But overall, it's a very rapid project. And as I said, from a business case perspective, we are very, very confident in this being a very, very good business. And also, tunnels are not built for like a year or two, but this particular tunnel will actually last like forever, or that's at least what our geologist friends have told us, that it's going to survive the next ice age as well.
It's incredible, massive feat. And I guess things are taking a bit longer, obviously, from a bureaucracy standpoint, which makes sense that everybody wants to make sure the T's and the I's and all these things are crossed and dotted. Now, when you're putting these contracts together, how do you determine when that potential start date is? Because everybody kind of has to figure out, if I'm going to start today versus in 2 years from now, and making sure that you can get the burrowing equipment. So are you guys having deep talks with Elon Musk and saying, hey, we're going to start this, we need you to allocate it at sometime within the next 18 months? Like, how do you guys structure these contracts? And is Elon Musk part of them, using the burrowing technology? Is that part of it?
Let's say not so much, as some of us have like our own reality and all of that. So yeah, I mean, we're there are many suppliers of tunnel boring machines, and what we are building is actually pretty big scale, like tunnels. Diameter of the tunnels much bigger than what kind of the boring company is building currently. But yeah, I mean, that's not like a huge problem to get the equipment. You have basically 3 different players, if you look at, or let's say sources. So obviously China, that owns most of these companies. Then you have Japan, you have Herrenknecht in Germany. So those are the kind of 3 main sources of equipment when it comes to boring. And we've been talking to all of those guys, and let's say that we know what we need to do to get the equipment. So that's kind of like pretty good shape. But I think that the main kind of question mark is really, when can we start? And we don't really have a like fantastic great answer right now. A lot of it depends on the authorities, both Finland and Estonia, and their collaboration. So we actually have constant dialogue with everybody, and I think that let's say within the next 2 years we'll be able to kind of like start. So that's kind of like a pretty safe bet. Ideally, like within 1 year, but again, don't know is kind of like the best answer we can give on that point right now. But once we get started, then it's a pretty straightforward process to actually like build.
No, that's pretty cool. So you're saying that there's a potential within the next year or two that you're going to kick off and start to do this. What are some of the preliminary works that you're doing right now to keep the ball rolling, outside of obviously the governance side and getting approvals of those things? What are some of the other things that are kind of major pieces of this puzzle that you kind of have to make sure that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, so maybe I take this one. So it's also boring work, but in a different way. So we're talking a lot to politicians, to authorities in both countries. We're working on the environmental impact assessment where we can. We're working on zoning. We're doing a lot of design. So just like last week, I was talking to our engineering team about the track geometry of the tunnel. So what kind of curves and ups and downs there will be, and so on. So a lot of like this really practical work that it's not really media sexy in any way. We don't really share about it in social media, but there's a lot of time and effort that actually is going into this type of stuff at the moment. And all of this will kind of lead to a point where we can submit a construction application to the governments, and then at some point start to bore. And we're kind of targeting that we would be ready with a functioning tunnel at the end of this decade, beginning the next one. But let's see how we can make that work. It's still realistic, but requires, of course, a lot of good collaboration on both sides of the day.
Well, that's great that it's still realistic, so that you're putting this effort into something that will become fruitful and valuable for both countries, which is pretty awesome. You mentioned the environmental assessment. Is there a group that you're working with that's kind of given you, here's the 50 things that you have to do in order to have this type of project move through the system? Or is this kind of a hit and miss? You're working and learning as you go on all of these different requirements that you feel you're going to need in order to get this next approval or to this next stage?
That's a fantastic question, and it's the type of question that we get often asked, but not in that way, but kind of a different way. So it's good to remind that the environmental impact assessment is a process. So it's not an approval, a list of things that we need to hit and then get a okay from the government, but it's a process of things that we need to do. So in Finland, just submitting our program. So basically the plan, how we do the actual EIA was more than 200 pages. In Estonia, so far, we've submitted 1,500 pages to the government to answer formally their questions about different things related to the EIA. And there is a governing body. So the environmental ministry in Finland and in Estonia, it's the climate ministry, have formed something called the ad hoc working group. Very unfortunate name. Sounds like something really ad hoc, but it's a very formal function with ministry representatives from both countries, from different ministries, different types of authorities, maybe 15, 20 people always in the meetings. And they have formally had meetings, I think 15, 20 times at least during the project we have been going forward. And that's the governing body. So one of the questions we often actually get is that kind of what is the government involvement? So that's it. We present our plans, we test ideas, and of course they present kind of their views. And we just kind of align everything and follow the process.
And when these documents are being built and they're being presented, obviously a 1,500-page document, that's quite a lot of information and probably takes some time to go through it and assess it on their end. Are they also hiring outside consultants to kind of go through and help them with the assessment and come back with the right questions and have them better understand and go and talk to other countries that have done something similar so they can grasp that information so that this project will run smoother for all parties and have the proper governance and security measures put in to ensure that it operates again smoothly and makes it to success?
It's actually a much more collaborative approach. So let me tell you the example how everything started in Finland. So we had like a kickoff meeting for the EIA on Finnish side, and we set the Finnish national record for participants. So we had, I think, 75 different authorities. So cities, like fire department, Ministry of Defense, you name it, they were there. So
Incredible.
All sorts of different functions, and we all come together. We present the plans. They have a possibility to comment that and say kind of what they would like to see, what is good, what is bad, from environmental perspective, from fire safety, from anything and everything. And then kind of our role is to make sure that we take into account all of these different angles and provide documentation that's kind of then going through the final critique, and then off we go. And all of this work is to kind of build the foundation to have a very good construction application at some point.
Oh, that's fantastic. So while you're going through this on the auxiliary side, the out-facing side of the business, are you able to start putting up the buildings, let's say in Tallinn and in Helsinki on each side of the shore? where this is going to run into, so you can start to create these centers and start to drive commerce in these to help pay for things as you go? Like, are there ways that you're trying to speed up other areas that can be sped up so that they can start generating eyeballs, revenue, dollars, etc., so that when you do start to burrow, you're further along in that process? Or is the burrowing the first thing that happens and nothing else can really happen until the burrowing is done?
It's actually a pretty good situation because, again, we're building a tunnel underground and like under the sea and everything. So 3 out of 4 station areas, they are already in existence, and there's like construction happening kind of like with or without us. So that is already, and that's also how we pick kind of the station areas that a lot of people work, a lot of people live in those areas, and they are growing areas that are in kind of like dire need of like connectivity. If you look at like this Otaniemi, Keilaniemi area in Finland as one example, that is an area in Finland where we have Aalto University, you have a massive startup ecosystem. It's also home of many of the biggest corporations in Finland. So there is massive workforce and more people living in that area. So now that area will get fast connection to the Helsinki airport, but also to the Tallinn airport. So you have kind of like then 2 airports in your like neighborhood, because end to end is going through the tunnel, it will take 20 minutes. So you'll have like less than 20-minute connection to Helsinki Airport, Tallinn Airport from this Otaniemi, Keilaniemi, which is the most significant kind of like business center or concentration of business and talent in Finland. So that is already happening. There's a lot of construction, a lot of people moving there. And then we have the airport station that's already, growing, again, recovering from the pandemic and like all of that. And then we have in Tallinn, it's also like the Ülemiste area, which is also home of, the Tallinn airport. But maybe even more importantly, that's where the Rail Baltic railroad, so basically going from then Tallinn to Pärnu to Riga to Kaunas, Vilnius, and Warsaw, and then like beyond. And that station area is also attracting a lot of people, a lot of companies. So that is happening. So the main kind of like the new land and new area is the island station. That is completely new. It's going to be roughly 5 square kilometers of new land, and that's going to be home to 50,000 new people that will then live, work, study, have fun on the island. And again, that island, same thing, fast connection to 2 airports, fast connection to kind of like rest of Europe. So that one is not basically being built yet, but we're putting more and more detail into the island, like design and the plan. And in fact, we just published a few teasers, some images of the latest designs that we have for the island. So 3 out of 4 stations being built, growing, and attracting more people. So that is like the very good news here. And then, of course, we expect the island to have massive demand once we get to building the buildings on that one. So overall, looking very, very good.
I love it. So taking this island, which I find phenomenal to understand how you guys put this together. And I think from our last chat, that was one thing that maybe I missed or we didn't get to chat about, was the fact that you're taking, this is very circular economy. You're taking the debris that's created from the tunneling and you're using that to create the island, which I think is so incredibly awesome. So from that, you build out this 5 square kilometer island. You've built a lot of startup ideas around this. And I know that you're pushing a lot of new innovation that can come in and help support this build throughout the next 5 to 10 years. Has there been any new companies that you've seen that have been created because of what you guys have been working on that you really stand out and you're excited for because of this project? you've seen, these 3 new companies pop up that are really innovative, and the rest of the world is going to start to use them because of the size of this project you're working on?
Yes. There's, I can't say there's one single company that's kind of specifically come out of the project itself, but we have helped quite a few companies already to kind of expand their business or kind of build on it. And there's a number of companies that we actually have invested in that we see will help us to build a better tunnel, faster, safer, more cost efficient, and so on. So maybe to give a couple of examples. So one of our favorites is a company called Caidio, Caidio. It's a company that's making this solution that will help to turn concrete greener or manufacture green concrete. So they basically have a device that's monitoring the concrete production line, and it's optimizing the water, sand, and cement ratios. So there will be less waste, and the ratio will be optimal at all times. And it's a fantastic example of how we can kind of something that is used quite a lot, and it's one of the biggest single polluters in the world. CO2 numbers are huge. So we're kind of tackling that problem, and we know that we will be using a lot of concrete in the tunnel as well. So we kind of took the bull by its horns and started to do something about it. Another example, a little bit different one, is that we kind of realized that we need some testing ground, some place where we can do training and education for all the people working on the tunnel project. So we found an old mine up in the northern part of Finland, and kind of around that we started to build this. It's a cooperative that basically brings together companies. And that sort of evolved a little bit forward. So now it's called the Smart City Innovation Cluster. And we got some Finnish government funding from Business Finland. And we have more than 100, I think it was 121 members in the cooperative now. And we've signed up some agreements globally. So supporting Madrid, Nuevo Norte, project in Spain, and we're kind of working on the new Indonesian capital, Nusantara, also with this cooperative. So it's a great example of how the tunnel project is sort of creating a new platform for innovation, and it's kind of driving a lot of these things to go forward.
That's
Peter,
awesome.
maybe there's something you want to add on the companies and innovation side.
No, I think that those are great examples, and we expect a lot more. And there's already a lot of companies that are benefiting from like what we are doing here. So I think, we can expect to see a lot of proven success stories coming out of this. So it is a massive project, and what always happens then there's like innovation associated with that. So yeah, more to come, I would say.
Brilliant. Now, overall costing of the project, I know you guys will probably keep iterating and changing. Originally, it was 15 billion to borrow, and then it was 150 million or billion, sorry, in overall commerce. Is that still the targets, or is that increased? Is it decreased? Have things changed?
No, let's say that's kind of like the numbers. We put in a lot of margin, a lot of buffer in that. And the tunnel itself is still at 15 billion. And then, of course, when you invest into infrastructure like we're doing here, and we've seen that, around the world, that then typically generates for every euro that you invest in the infrastructure, so in the tunnel, this case, on top of the tunnel, the station areas, all of that, you get 10x minimum. So that is the 150 billion in added kind of like investment. And we are very confident that will happen, looking at like what is already happening in the station areas and what will happen at the island and all of that. So it's same numbers that we had since the beginning, but of course we have had time now to put in a lot more detail. So we have, it's a massive spreadsheet. Let's put it that way.
I can imagine. Well, it's still incredible, and I can't wait when you guys come out with all the metrics on like how much concrete you're using, how much cable you had to lay, all these metrics and details that come out. I think that's going to be so fascinating to see and look at because of it's 100 kilometers, but it's still incredible to know what came in and what was part of all of this. And when you get into that city and building that up, I think that's also incredible. 50,000 people living on a man-made island, which is also pretty sick. So you're looking at 1 to 2 years to kick off this project and start burrowing. Financing has been locked in. Everything's moving along. Has there been any red flags or anything that threw you guys for a loop at this point that you found fascinating? Because every entrepreneur loves challenges and loves to solve problems. Has there been anything that just kind of threw you guys off and were shaking your head at because of disbelief of, I can't believe I'm going through this?
I think that's like, again, more about dealing with the various processes with kind of like national governments and regional and local. So there's a lot of that on both sides. So I think that it's what we expected, and we've done a lot of work in areas that are then dependent on like good collaboration with the government. So I think that it's always a pain, and it's but you just have to kind of like deal with it. And sometimes it can be very frustrating. I mean, we would love to be already at a stage where we're actually boring, actually building, but we're not. So that again is not very good, but it is what it is, and we know that we'll get the tunnel done. We'll get all of this done. It's just a question of time, but it can be very frustrating, of course, when you can't make things happen at the pace that you're kind of like used to and want to do. So I would say that is kind of like the biggest kind of like red flag, if you will. I wouldn't may call it a red flag, but it's just it is what it is. Yeah.
Fair. So I have 2 questions before we're going to switch into the rapid fire, into the 60-second rant. When the burrowing is occurring, if you hit oil or you hit any other concern of either good or bad value, what is the recourse? What occurs? And has that been obviously talked about? I know you said you're going through granite, but at any point in time, you can come across a gold pocket or oil or something or gas. You might hit something of who knows when you're down there. And then secondarily, who owns that land that you're burrowing through and who would benefit from that on the outskirt of you hitting something if it slows down the project?
Okay, so I have good news and I have bad news here. So bad news is that we won't find any gold or oil. But the good news is that we know the geology really, really well. So it's been kind of researched and investigated, and our geologists know what's out there. Of course, we need to do some sort of pinpointed studies and research ourselves, but we pretty much know what to expect, and it's going to be quite a smooth ride, I would say. Your question about the land, there's of course on the Finnish borders, it's the Finland government that owns most of the land. We are going to be boring through Helsinki City, Espoo City, Vantaa City, sort of the cities in the area own some bits and pieces. Same thing on the Estonian side. And then there's about 35 kilometers of international borders that we are boring through. And that's anybody can bore tunnels in the international zone as long as you kind of meet the international regulation. So that's quite straightforward also from that perspective.
Awesome. Well, that sounds very easy, not complicated. So you guys will be able to continue working through and you won't have any slowdowns. So I love that. All right. Well, we're going to shift now into our 60-second rant. And then we'll probably clean things up and we'll probably leave it at that. But it's been a great relearning and getting an update on the project. So we have a segment where we do called the 60-second rant, where I give you 60 seconds in this case because there's two of you, and I'm sure you can coordinate the rant. But the rant is meant to drive some hard feelings about something that you're for or against, whatever that might be. I'll time it, and then when you have 5 seconds left, I'll show you my 5 seconds. And we'll go from there. And I will try to banter back depending on what the rant is. But I don't know if Costa, you wanna jump into the rant first and have Peter layer into this, but I'll let you guys to take that on. And if you're ready to go, then we'll hit start. We'll see how this works out.
Yeah, let's give it a try. I don't know what to rant about, but something about the tunnel. So.
All right, let's do it. All right, you ready? You're on. Go.
All right. So as we talked about the tunnel, we're very, very passionate about building that and making it happen. It's super frustrating, as we discussed already, that we meet a lot of bureaucracy, we meet a lot of politics, and trying to get people to understand why do things in a certain way, why to build the tunnel, what's kind of the purpose of that, how to make it happen in the best possible way, and what is the impact of that on kind of micro level, but on the macro level. So the societal level, and also for the whole region, and for that matter also for Europe, kind of how we make one small or relatively small piece of infrastructure that can impact the GDPs of a couple of countries and the whole Europe, and that's been very, very frustrating to see that why people don't really get it. So that's kind of my rant on this 60-second challenge.
All right. Well, we'll actually leave it there, and I'll rebuttal, and then Peter, you can jump in. So people predominantly dislike change, and I think that they fight back against innovation and change because they're worried that something else of controlling factors are going to take over the world, or it's giving access to another country, or it's someone else is making too much money. Whatever the reasons are, people just dislike change. So if they dislike change, how do you guys, when you want to push this through, how do you actually do something in micro steps, which in the background you're doing big steps, so that people don't always have to see what's going on in the forefront, but they believe in you and start to build the trust that you guys are building something that's really great and it's going to be phenomenal? What is it and how do you do that? Because at the end of the day, I'm all for this innovation. I think it's incredible what you're doing. But at the same time, because people don't like change, you're going to hit more walls than you can imagine. Because of that, how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I think it's very simple. Actions speak louder than words. So we're just getting it done. As simple as that.
I love it. Why not? Why make it any more complicated than that? We're just going to keep hustling through this. And if it takes us 10 years to do it, that's all we're going to do. And when we're done, then everybody else can be appreciative and accepting to the fact that you guys have accomplished something that no one else has really done in a long time, and you made some money doing it, and that everybody else has been able to bolster their economies from both sides of the water. So I think that's incredible. I can't see anything wrong with that, but like I said, things take time to change, and the hustle is what's going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So maybe
very good.
Maybe what we'll do then is we usually have rapid fire questions, but because of the fact that there's two of us and they're going to be a little bit different, so why don't we do this? Why don't we leave this as kind of our interlude into the next episode when we get to interview you guys again in another year? And I think if we can keep going this on for the next 10 years, then we'll be able to be there for the live kickoff and the ribbon cutting in 10 years. And hopefully we'll have learned a significant amount about this whole project. And next time we'll dive in deeper, and maybe we'll even throw up some diagrams and be able to show more of the architecture and the design, and dive into more of those metrics that we talked about. But I think this has been a phenomenal update. And again, I'm the fanboy on the other side of the world, excited for what you guys are doing. And I can't wait to fly down and check this out as you guys start progressing forward. But if there's any other things, any last words you guys want to share, I just want to thank you guys for joining us again and giving us the update. But like we do, we like to turn it over to you. So anything you want to share to the investor community or to startups, I turn it over to you. But again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeffrey, for the kind words, and it's always fantastic to have fans. So we'll book you on the maiden voyage of the.
Yes, I love trains, man. This is exciting. This is very exciting.
Yeah, very good. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you and many others there. So, and of course, you're welcome to visit us here in the finest Bay Area, like anytime. So it's always, pleasure to see more people here, and there's a lot of exciting things going on. So no reason not to come here, like any day.
I love it. Well, if I don't make it down to your next event, then I certainly will in the next year make my way there. But very excited to do that. So again, thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure regrouping with you guys. And I wish you both all the success on on the upcoming burrowing and governance and compliance. But thank you very much again for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to do a kind of a recap, but this is a fantastic project. Just over 100 kilometers long in burrowing, 16 burrowers operating and going 8 in 2 directions, or in multiple directions, 103 kilometers exact, 4 stations, man-made island, which is so cool that they're taking the debris and using that to create the island. And they're going to have 50,000 people living on this island and make it all around startups, which is really, really, really cool. So there's a lot of good things that they're doing with this project. And the fact that it's going to be anywhere from 150 to 250 billion in extra added commerce that's going to be running between the two countries. I think that's also pretty exciting for anybody that's looking at the metrics. There'll be some cool stuff that'll come out, I'm sure, over time. But yeah, it's really fascinating on what they're doing and how they're doing it, and we'll continue to do regular updates on this project as they continue to build through, as they're in year 6, and hopefully, as they mentioned, by the end of this decade, they'll be able to have this project up and running. So thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the conversation, please feel free to share with your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or please follow us on Spotify, Google, or Apple. Feel free to share an audio clip around our show. We may include it in one of our future podcasts. You can find us on all social platforms, including LinkedIn, Supporters Fund, and your support and comments are truly appreciated. Please visit us at Supporters Fund or startup events at openpeoplenetwork.com. Thank you and have a fantastic day.